I started writing code when I was 16, building a business management platform from my parents' garage. 5 years ago, I invited my sister Alyssa to be the CEO of my growing startup, giving her 40% ownership because I trusted family above all else. We built something incredible together, reaching 200 employees and millions in revenue. Then, one Monday morning, I walked into the office to find my keycard deactivated and Alyssa waiting with a termination letter. My replacement, our cousin Jackson, with his fancy Harvard MBA. Trước khi tôi kể cho bạn cách một công ty công nghệ trị giá hàng triệu đô sụp đổ chỉ trong 6 ngày, hãy để lại bình luận nơi bạn đang xem và nhấn subscribe để không bỏ lỡ những câu chuyện thực tế về phản bội trong kinh doanh. I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood in Minneapolis, where my dad worked at an auto plant and mom was a nurse at the county hospital. We never had much, but they made sure I had a second-hand computer when I showed interest in technology. By 16, I was teaching myself to code, staying up until 3 in the morning, debugging projects while my classmates were partying or playing sports. My parents thought it was just a phase, hoping I would grow out of it and pursue something stable like engineering or medicine. I made it through 2 years at Minnesota State before dropping out to pursue my dream. Mom cried when I told them, but Dad just nodded silently. He understood taking risks. Having once tried starting his own repair shop before the recession forced him back to factory work. They let me move back into my childhood bedroom, converting our garage into my workspace where I would spend the next 18 months building my platform. My vision was a business management software that simplified complex tasks for small companies. Nothing on the market offered the right balance of power and simplicity. I worked 18 hours daily, sustaining myself on ramen noodles and coffee coding until my fingers cramped and eyes burned. During that time, Alyssa would check on me regularly, bringing actual food and making sure I occasionally slept. 3 years older and always the responsible one, she had just graduated with her business degree and was working at a local marketing firm. "You know what you are building actually looks promising," she told me one night, looking over my shoulder at the interface. Most startups fail because brilliant tech people have no business sense. You need someone who understands markets and financials. We had always been close growing up. When neighborhood kids bullied me for being the skinny computer nerd, Alyssa was my fierce protector. When Dad lost his job during the recession and things got tight, we would hide in our treehouse planning imaginary businesses we would start together someday. I trusted her completely. The day I landed, my first paying client still ranks as one of the happiest moments of my life. A local landscaping company agreed to pay $2,000 monthly to use my platform. I framed that check, hanging it in the garage beside my desk. Within 3 months, I had 10 clients and enough revenue to rent a tiny office downtown. That night, I invited Alyssa to dinner at an actual restaurant instead of eating takeout in the garage. "I want you to be my CEO," I told her, sliding a business proposal across the table. "You have the business knowledge I lack, and there is nobody I trust more." Her eyes widened as she reviewed the proposal. "A 60-40 split. You would give me 40% ownership." "Family is everything," I replied. "This could be huge, but I cannot do it alone." 2 weeks later, she quit her job and joined me full-time. We made an incredible team. I handled product development and technical decisions, while she managed business operations, sales, and investor relations. Within a year, we hired 5 employees and moved to a larger office. By year 2, we secured our first funding round of $500,000. The investors love that we are siblings, Alyssa mentioned after one successful pitch. They see it as stability. The technical genius and the business mastermind bonded by blood. Those early years were magical. We worked 14-hour days, celebrated each new client with cheap champagne, and faced every crisis together. When the server crashed at 2 in the morning, Alyssa would bring coffee while I fixed it. When a challenging client was considering cancellation, I would join her sales calls to provide technical reassurance. "We are actually doing it," she said on our 3rd anniversary as we looked out at our office of 30 employees. "We are building something that matters. I never imagined anything could come between us." By year 4, everything had changed. Our company had grown to over 200 employees with offices in 3 cities. Our client list included Fortune 500 companies, and our valuation had reached 8 figures. Success transformed Alyssa in ways I barely recognized. She moved to an exclusive neighborhood, began wearing designer clothes, and joined country clubs where she networked with other executives. The sister who once brought me sandwiches while I coded now had an assistant schedule our meetings. Her office on the top floor became increasingly off-limits, with a receptionist filtering visitors. During board meetings, she spoke in corporate jargon about strategic pivots and maximizing shareholder value, while I struggled to recognize the person I had once shared a treehouse with. The first time I met Jackson was at our parents' Thanksgiving dinner. Alyssa arrived 2 hours late in her new Mercedes, bringing along our cousin, who had just completed his MBA at Harvard. I remembered him vaguely from childhood reunions, though we had never been close since his family lived on the East Coast. Jackson is a business genius. Alyssa gushed as he charmed our parents with stories of Harvard and consulting for Fortune 100 companies. He has been giving me incredible advice on scaling the company. I noticed the way they exchanged glances throughout dinner, like they shared secrets I was not privy to. When conversation turned to the company, Jackson asked pointed questions about our technology infrastructure and growth plans. Something in his tone made my skin crawl, but I dismissed it as irrational jealousy. 2 weeks later, I spotted Jackson in our office badge clipped to his expensive suit, being introduced to department heads as a special advisor. My development team reported closed-door meetings where Jackson and Alyssa requested detailed explanations of our codebase and architecture. When I asked Alyssa about it, she waved it off as preliminary consulting work. "You need to focus on the product," she said dismissively. "Leave the business strategy to me." Carol from accounting mentioned seeing them having dinner together at expensive restaurants. Tony from engineering reported Jackson requesting administrator access to our servers for assessment purposes. Individual incidents seemed minor, but collectively they formed a pattern that kept me awake at night. In March, Alyssa called an emergency board meeting without consulting me first. Our investors dialed in while she delivered a polished presentation about restructuring for accelerated growth. The centerpiece was adding a technically focused MBA to the executive team to modernize our approach to scalability. "Our technical foundations were perfect for a startup," she explained, not meeting my eyes. "But to compete at enterprise level, we need professional management of our technology stack." "We already have a technical leader," I interjected, feeling blood rush to my face. "Me, the person who built this entire platform." "With all due respect," she countered using the corporate tone. "I had come to despise self-taught coding skills were sufficient for version 1, but we need forward-thinking leadership with formal business training for version 2. The meeting ended without resolution, but the damage was done. The seed had been planted in our investors' minds that I might be a liability rather than an asset. As we left the conference room, Alyssa pulled me aside. "Stop being so sensitive," she hissed. "This is business, not personal." But it was personal. It was my life work being reframed as inadequate by the person I had trusted most. The following weeks brought mounting evidence of betrayal. Maria from Investor Relations confided that Alyssa had been having private meetings with our major investors without including me. "She has been sharing concerns about technical leadership," Maria whispered, looking around nervously, suggesting the platform needs a complete overhaul under new direction. Ryan, my senior developer who had been with me since the garage days, forwarded an email where Jackson requested complete access to our source code repositories. For audit purposes, the message claimed, though no audit had been announced. Most damning was the document I found accidentally printed at the shared office printer, a confidential memo titled Core Personnel Restructuring, with my name at the top of a list labeled Phase 1 Transitions. I confronted Alyssa immediately, but her assistant claimed she was in back-to-back meetings all day. My messages went unanswered. That Friday, I noticed facilities staff preparing a new corner office with a nameplate reading Chief Technology Officer. When I inquired about it, the building manager quickly changed the subject. The weekend passed in a haze of anxiety as I reviewed our shareholder agreement, finding a clause that allowed executive removal with majority board approval. Could she actually be planning to push me out of my own company? I tried calling our parents for advice, but learned Alyssa had already visited them. She mentioned there might be some changes at the company, Mom said carefully. "Something about bringing in professional management to help you focus on what you love most, the technical side." She was setting the stage, preparing everyone for my demotion or removal. The sister I trusted with everything was systematically undermining me. Monday morning arrived with an ominous feeling. When my keycard failed at the main entrance, I knew. The receptionist avoided eye contact, calling security to escort me to the conference room where Alyssa waited with Jackson and our company attorney. "We have decided to make changes effective immediately," Alyssa stated without preamble, sliding a document across the table. "Your technical contributions were invaluable during our startup phase, but the board unanimously agrees we need different leadership for our growth stage." The termination agreement offered 6 months severance in exchange for my remaining 30% ownership. My creation, my life work, valued at pennies on the dollar. "This is my company," I managed to say through the shock. "I built this platform from nothing." "Actually," Jackson interjected with practiced smoothness, "you built the prototype. The current enterprise platform requires sophisticated leadership from those with proper credentials. The board recognizes that reality. The investors support this transition unanimously," Alyssa added. "Check the shareholder agreement section 12. With board approval, executive changes can be implemented immediately." Security waited to escort me out, watching as I emptied my desk into a cardboard box. Employees stared as I walked through the open office plan, some looking away in shame, others whispering behind hands. Ryan tried approaching but was intercepted by Jackson. My keycard was confiscated at the exit, the door closing behind me with chilling finality. I sat in my car, unable to process what had happened. My sister, my flesh and blood, had orchestrated my removal from the company I created, the vision I had sacrificed everything to build. The betrayal was so complete it left me numb. The next 48 hours passed in a fog. I ignored calls and messages, sleeping on my couch, still wearing the same clothes from Monday. Food remained uneaten in my refrigerator as I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment, with Alyssa searching for signs I had missed. Had she always planned this, or did power simply corrupt her over time? The question tortured me more than the betrayal itself. On the third day, I finally called my parents. Dad answered, his voice heavy with concern. "We have been worried sick about you," he said. "Alyssa told us there was a business disagreement, but nothing more." "She fired me," I replied flatly. "Took the company I built, replaced me with Jackson." The silence stretched until Mom took the phone. "Come over for dinner tonight," she insisted. "You need family right now." I almost laughed at the irony, but agreed. Their disappointment in Alyssa was palpable as I explained everything. Dad pounded the table once, his face flushed with anger. "Not how we raised her," he muttered. Mom just kept shaking her head in disbelief. "What will you do now?" she finally asked. "I honestly do not know," I admitted. It was the first time in my adult life without a clear direction. As I drove home that night, my phone rang with an unknown number. It was Diane, our former technical director, who had resigned months earlier over disagreements with Alyssa. "Have you seen what is happening?" she asked without greeting. "They are dismantling everything you built." According to Diane, Jackson had immediately implemented a system modernization against the advice of the entire technical team. Critical components were being rewritten by new developers, while experienced engineers were being sidelined or fired. The platform's stability was already showing warning signs. "The team is in revolt," she continued. 4 senior engineers resigned today, after Jackson overrode critical security protocols. "Just thought you should know." I thanked her and hung up, feeling a strange calm replace my despair. Perhaps the universe would deliver justice where I could not. By day 5, post-firing, the situation had evolved from troubling to catastrophic. My phone buzzed constantly with updates from former colleagues. The platform had experienced 3 major outages in 24 hours, with recovery times increasing each instance. Jackson had apparently replaced our proven architecture with his own vision, ignoring warnings from the technical team about compatibility and stability issues. Mark, our database administrator, texted, "Complete system failure. All client instances down. Estimated 12-hour recovery minimum." I watched from afar as social media exploded with complaints from customers unable to access their business-critical data. Industry tech blogs began covering the story. Startup darling experiences catastrophic service failure after leadership shakeup. Our company Twitter account posted vague reassurances, while clients publicly threatened to cancel contracts. Ryan called that evening, speaking quietly as if afraid of being overheard. Jackson is blaming the original architecture, he reported. Claims the system was always unstable. Alyssa is backing him publicly but freaking out in private meetings. 3 major clients already confirmed cancellation, 2 others threatening. What about backups, I asked. The contingency protocols, Jackson disabled them during the modernization process. Called them redundant and inefficient. I ended the call feeling strangely hollow. The company I poured my soul into was imploding, yet I felt no satisfaction in being proven right. Hundreds of employees might lose their jobs because of Alyssa and Jackson ego. Clients who trusted our platform were facing business disruptions. The waste of potential was heartbreaking. 6 days after my unceremonious departure, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. Dave Reynolds, our lead investor, was calling directly, something that had never happened before. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "We made a terrible mistake." Dave Reynolds had been the first major investor to believe in us, writing a check when we were just 10 employees working from a cramped office with secondhand furniture. His venture capital firm now held 15% of the company, making him the 3rd largest shareholder after Alyssa and myself, assuming my shares had not been redistributed yet. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown, away from the office, where crisis management was undoubtedly underway. Dave looked like he had aged years, in a week, dark circles under his eyes, and tie loosened at his collar. "The platform has been down for 36 hours, he stated, stirring his untouched coffee. "Major clients are not just threatening to leave now, they are actually gone. Jefferies Financial withdrew their $1 million annual contract this morning. Stewart Manufacturing and TELUS Healthcare are following. The company is hemorrhaging cash with each passing hour." I nodded, unsurprised. Those clients relied on our platform for critical business functions. Extended downtime was existentially threatening to their operations. Jackson convinced everyone the system needed complete rebuilding, Dave continued. Claimed your architecture was unsustainable. When the board expressed concerns about disruption, he promised a seamless transition. Instead, we got catastrophe, and Alyssa, Dave grimaced, in over her head. She backed Jackson against the entire technical team. Now she is facing investor lawsuits and client litigation simultaneously. Our firm alone has lost millions in valuation within days. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "We want you back." The entire investment group agrees. Name your terms. The request was simultaneously vindicating and infuriating. The same board that unanimously approved my removal now wanted me to save them. "Why would I rescue the people who betrayed me?" I asked quietly. "Because you built something remarkable," Dave replied. "Something that helps thousands of businesses function better. Are you willing to let that die because your sister made an unforgivable mistake?" He was right, of course. The platform was bigger than my wounded pride, but returning would require my conditions. "I want 70% ownership reinstated as CEO, with full control," I stated flatly. "Alyssa retains 5% with no operational role. Jackson exits completely. The board composition changes to give me controlling votes. Those are my non-negotiable terms." Dave winced but nodded. "The other investors will agree. We have no choice." One more thing, I added. "Alyssa delivers the news to Jackson personally. She created this mess, she can clean it up." The emergency board meeting that evening was surreal. I sat at the conference table where I had been fired just days earlier now, holding all the leverage. The board members joined by video, somber faces filling the screens around the room. Alyssa sat opposite me, makeup failing to hide her exhaustion, designer outfit replaced by a rumpled blouse she had likely been wearing since yesterday. "The terms have been reviewed by counsel and found legally sound," the board chairman announced. "All in favor of approving the restructuring and reinstating original leadership." The unanimous vote was satisfying but hollow. These same people had abandoned me days ago. Their loyalty extended only as far as their financial interests. Alyssa signed the papers transferring leadership without meeting my eyes. When Jackson burst into the room, face flushed with anger, after being informed of his termination, she finally showed emotion. "You promised this would work," she shouted at him. "You said your Harvard methods were foolproof. Your brother sabotaged the transition," Jackson spat back. "No system fails this catastrophically without interference. I stood addressing him directly for the first time. The system failed because you dismantled safety protocols that took years to perfect. You prioritized your ego over stability. The logs show exactly what happened and when. Would you like me to share those details with our investors? Security escorted him out, still shouting accusations. Alyssa remained staring at her hands folded on the table. "What happens now?" she asked quietly when we were alone. "You clean out your office tonight. Your 5% shares remain in a trust with no voting rights. The official statement will cite strategic differences, nothing more." She nodded, finally meeting my gaze. "I thought I was doing what was best for the company. Jackson convinced me you were holding us back." "No," I corrected her. "You convinced yourself. You wanted the prestige of running a technology company without respecting the technology itself. You betrayed me because it was convenient for your narrative. We are still family," she whispered. I stood gathering the signed agreements. Biology does not change. Trust does. The following weeks were brutal. I worked 20 hours daily, personally calling major clients to apologize and offer concessions to return. The technical team rallied around me, working around the clock to restore systems and repair damaged architecture. 3 weeks of emergency operations mode left everyone exhausted but proud as stability returned and clients cautiously resumed operations. I restructured the entire executive team, promoting Ryan to Chief Technology Officer and Diane to return as Operations Director. People who had proven their loyalty and competence through actions rather than credentials. The board remained distant and deferential, chastened by their near-catastrophic mistake. The press loved our recovery story, dubbing it the Phoenix rebirth of Silicon Valley. Tech blogs that had covered our downfall now wrote glowing pieces about resilient leadership and technical excellence. Our customer retention began improving as confidence returned, and by month 3 we had recovered 60% of our lost business. My relationship with my family underwent its own painful reconstruction. Sunday dinners at our parents' house became tense affairs when Alyssa eventually returned. She had taken a marketing position at a consumer goods company, a significant step down from CEO of a tech darling. We spoke politely but briefly, the easy closeness of childhood irretrievably lost. 6 months after the failed coup, we found ourselves alone in our parents' kitchen washing dishes after dinner while Mom and Dad watched television in the living room. "I miss who we were," Alyssa said suddenly, hands submerged in soapy water. "Before money and status complicated everything. I miss that too," I admitted. "But trust is like a mirror. Once broken, you can never look at it the same way again." She nodded, understanding the permanence of her actions. "Is the company doing well now, better than ever?" I replied truthfully. "We surpassed pre-crisis revenue last quarter. Launched 2 new product lines. The team is stronger for having weathered the storm." "I am glad," she said, and seemed to genuinely mean it. At least something good survived. Perhaps that was the most important lesson from the entire ordeal. Companies can recover from poor leadership. Products can be rebuilt after failure. But relationships damaged by betrayal never truly return to their original state. They either evolve into something new or remain permanently fractured. Today, our company valuation has doubled since the crisis. The platform serves clients globally with industry-leading stability. I still work alongside people who believed in the vision when everything seemed lost. Most importantly, I lead with unwavering principles, valuing integrity and expertise over impressive titles or family connections. Alyssa and I maintain a cordial relationship at family functions, though the closeness we once shared remains a casualty of her choices. Jackson took a position at a traditional consulting firm, never again venturing into technology leadership. Our parents host holiday gatherings where we all pretend the wounds have healed, though the scars remain visible to those who know where to look. Have you ever had someone close to you choose ambition over loyalty? How did you rebuild afterward? Share your experience in the comments below, and do not forget to subscribe if this story resonated with you. Sometimes the deepest betrayals lead to the most profound growth, but only if we choose wisdom over bitterness. Thank you for listening, and remember that true success comes from creating value, not from titles or status.